Hi, I'm Lynn Gray, Chair of the Hillsborough County School Board. I want to welcome you to Hillsborough County Public Schools. We serve more than 200,000 students. That includes children in preschool through our Adults in Our Workforce program.
Hi, I'm Dr. Stacy Hahn, the Board Vice Chair. Our district is the 7th largest in America, and our team is made up of more than 24,000 people working at nearly 250 sites across the county.
We are diverse and dedicated. Our board meetings are held in our board auditorium on select Tuesdays at 4 p.m. The best way to serve our students and our community is to involve you, the public, in what we do.
You are welcome to email or meet with any of our board members and follow our district on social media. Board meetings are covered live by Hillsborough Schools TV on Spectrum Cable Channel 635 and Frontier Cable Channel 32.
Meetings are streamed on our website at hillsboroughschools.org. Closed captioning is provided on all broadcasts, and past meetings are available in our online archives.
We are interested in what the public has to say. We'll include time for audience comments before we address our business items. Our agenda and any supporting materials can be viewed online in advance. They're posted 7 days before each meeting on our website at hillsboroughschools.org.
Our vision is preparing students for life, and that means all students, every day. Todos los estudiantes, todos los días. Thank you for your interest in education. With your help, we're making decisions that shape our community's future.
This special session will come to order. I want to first thank our board members for coming at this time, a stressful time, and I think we have some things to discuss, so we shall. Right now, let's go ahead. Member Hahn, will you now lead us in a moment of silence? And then we'll follow up by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Please join me in a moment of silence this morning. Thank you. Now please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Member Hahn. I need a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. I have a motion by Member Combs and a second by Member Vaughn. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote when your lights are on. It is unanimous. Thank you. Let the record reflect that all board members are present either in the boardroom or by remote. In this case, we're all in the boardroom. Board members, I would like to go over the format of today's meeting. We are permitting up to 50 people to be present in the boardroom. Given the size and orientation of the boardroom, we can do this now safely. Members of the public may sit in every other seat. The public is reminded that as part of the district's reopening plan, approved by the Florida Department of Education, face coverings are required to be worn at all district sites, including ROSAC. Those not wearing a face covering will be asked to wear one and will be provided with one if they do not have one. Should someone, after being asked, refuse to comply, they will be asked to leave the premises. Member Hahn, will you now read the board guidelines?
As we begin this morning's meeting, let me quickly review the format of our school board meetings. Please silence all electronic devices. There are speakers in the room behind me that allow board members to hear the meeting upon stepping away from the dais. This meeting can be viewed with closed captioning on the live webcast, on cable TV, and on video monitors here in the auditorium. It can also be viewed with closed captioning in the online video archive.
Thank you, Member Hond. Today, I have called this special meeting to share new information with the full board in an open and transparent manner so that everyone has the same information at the same time. The purpose of the meeting is to provide information only, and no substantive votes will be taken. Because this meeting is to receive information only, there will be no public comment. And at this time, the following are the two topics for discussion today. The first one we will be discussing, and this is on your agenda, board members, the HASA survey and with its related, I think 100 and something pages testimonials. We won't go through all those. And the DOE fiscal plan, as we are reminded, we received a letter yesterday. Those are the two items. And as chair, I've chosen to provide information to each board member, and thank you, Superintendent Davis, for getting the HASA results and all the testimonials. And I really do appreciate it. We just received this at 9 o'clock in the morning. So, and I have not gotten a chance to look through the whole document. But at any rate, I've chosen to provide information to the board in an open and transparent setting, so each board member has a chance to respond versus other social media or the media in general. Further, it is my duty to acknowledge and share critical information affecting our district and our superintendent in an open public setting conducive for discussion. We are reminded this is an information meeting only. Two critical pieces of information have come to light. The current culture of our schools, which reflect the morale of our teachers, staff, and administration, and the DOE letter from Richard Corcoran, which is a call to action for board members and the superintendent to develop a fiscal plan for our district within 20 days, and I would expect now it's 19 days. First, let's discuss the climate, the culture, and the level of trust in our schools. The HASA, Hillsborough Association of School Administrators, survey and numerous testimonials reveal the low morale on every level, inclusive are principals, assistant principals, and school supervisors. We are reminded that decreased school morale will affect the mental and academic welfare of our children. Note, HASA members give their personal email to the governing board, which in turn is the conduit for exchanging confidential survey emails that has contributed to this survey. Two information items will be discussed, as I said. There is no preliminary HASA survey as mentioned on the agenda, or you'll see it. We have the full survey. And again, thank you, Superintendent Davis. We have testimonials and anecdotal information. Second, you will see, board members, a DOE letter from Richard Corcoran, which I know you received yesterday. I put a copy on your dais. Regarding the actual survey, and this is probably a good time to pull it out. It's thick. We're not going to go through all the pages of testimonials. I'm not sure if it's public record yet, but it will soon be. So I'd rather you all see what's going on versus, again, being told. The actual survey, importantly, in my mind, provides just cause versus hearsay. And I know board members, the many comments that you hear from principals and counselors and, versus, many school personnel, I know that we've had to answer many emails, but at the end of the day, I classify it as hearsay, and it's only something that we can say back. But now this is data that will support some of the realities that are occurring in our school. The HASA survey is now completely finished, as you now know. Board members, you will see the question posed to all HASA members. there were a total of 811 HACA members, 526, or 65% of the members returned. The reason I called this meeting after our retreat, and I think you all know because you probably read the paper and have various media, we agreed on a superintendent correction plan, which is still intact. Monday evening, I had gotten a part of the survey with over 78% of the administration remarking disapproval. And if you look at the levels, the level, and Pablo, go ahead and put the first slide up just so we can share with the audience. It's a little bit blurry, but I have my glasses and I hope you all can see. But if you look at the legend, you go from strongly agree, neutral, disagree, to strongly disagree. So Monday evening, I had 78% of the disapproval response. And I waited till Tuesday, and the response then was 85% disapproval. So in my mind, because we have to, by law, by statute, give 2 days notice for a special called board meeting, I had to make the determination, and thus we're sitting here today. What we didn't know is that Richard Corcoran, the Department of Education Commissioner, would write us a letter yesterday, and so there goes the second issue or the information item. And just as a moment or a few minutes, just to go over it, and I think, Pablo, let's just go over the slides just really kind of quick, because I think everyone can read it. Question 1, question 2, and this has to do with collaboration and communication. And then you all can probably, I have my, you could probably see it okay if you're sitting in the audience. So we see that there is a strong disagreement on that level. And question, next slide, 3 and 4, and there is a total of 20 questions, if I'm not mistaken, where it deals with decisions and subsequent changes. And there's also, again, a strongly disagree. Also, question 4, school leaders believe the superintendent has the best interests of the stakeholders as decisions are made. And, again, we can see that. So we're seeing the trend as we go through question 5 and question 6, and I'm not going to belabor each one. You can also do the math as you see it. It says on 5, district and school leaders have a high level of confidence in the leadership of the superintendent. It seems to be leaning into the superintendent on these first few questions. But let's go to questions 7 and 8 also. Question 8, do the school leaders feel appreciated, valued, and supported by the superintendent? And it's a strongly disagreement. But question 9 is the most important one. Question 9, district and school leaders have a high level of confidence in the superintendent that he understands the complexity of their responsibilities. And you can see that's not, we're between disagree and strongly disagree, but still, from what we hear, there's a lot, and Superintendent Davis, you are doing so much to get into the favor of our principals, and I know this. And when we start looking at graphs that do not show, the whole high popularity, we also must note that our superintendent has faced COVID, financial crises and ours is even worse because of previous layers, that no other district has gone through. And with that in mind, we have to be tempered in our remarks, board, because it needs to be paid attention to. We've had surveys before, but not in COVID and not during budget cuts. And I know that, Superintendent, I hope that you'll remark on that, because that's certainly part of the outlook that we have to share. But question 9, again, when we look at the confidence level, we want our children to feel the confidence of their administration, their principal, their guidance counselor, their vocational career counselor, their custodians, their teachers, certainly their teachers. When the children don't feel positive in their school environment, it comes from the leadership. And we all know as teachers, former teachers, that why do teachers leave schools? They don't leave schools, they leave the principal. So it's very important that we direct to the level of the child. Because I'm only here, and I think I'll speak for all the board members, and I can. Every board member here is for the children, and that is so true. And this has to be, and I am almost positive Superintendent Davis will address these, and we will overcome it. But at any rate, going up to question 15, again with the superintendent, but has a sustained, honest, and sensitive effort to address district and school leaders' concerns. So I think when we monitor surveys, we can also look at the survey and say, hey, maybe I can do this better. Maybe this is something I need to work on. We all get evaluated. I'm looking at every one of you. You've gone through teacher evaluations. You've gone through principal evaluations. Every one of us is accountable. Every one of us. But what we do differently is we look at the results and we say, hey, man, maybe this is something I can work on. I can do better. And I think this board is all about that type of outlook versus the other, like giving up. Because Superintendent Davis is a fighter. He's a believer in children, and he does not want this type of results at all. So we're going to look forward to the changes, and we'll have our retreat board, or however you wish to have your meeting on Tuesday. Question 16 doesn't address the superintendent. It addresses the assistant principal. The process and direction provided to district and school leaders regarding the elimination of assistant principal positions is equitable. There have been questions whether it has been equitable, and we have a chief of diversity who tries her best and does a wonderful job to make sure that we are eliminating and gaining positions in an equitable way. The question 17, the responsibilities and risks associated to all the administrators during the COVID pandemic were understood, considered, and appreciated by the superintendent. Well, I think we all can agree that every one of us we were all trying our best just to do the right thing. We did open up schools safely. The children were not the drivers of COVID, and I honestly can think, at least I'll just say this myself, I think we did a darn good job. But again, that's, can be argued. Question 18, budgetary, and this is what we're going to talk about today, board members. Do our school leaders, does the public, does our board members have confidence in solving the budgetary situation and this goes to our superintendent. We will be talking about that today with regards to the letter that was sent yesterday. And going right back down to question 20, district and school leaders are confident the information provided by the superintendent is well planned, reliable, and will remain consistent regardless of the audience to whom it is delivered. So one thing I think we all agree is we want better communication. We need to have better communication. And when we talk about the financial plan coming up soon, the public needs to know exactly what's going on with our finances. And I'm thanking right now Ro Johnson, our new CFO, I think will take care of that. But at any rate, there are many pages of individual testimonials. And board members may or may not choose to read them. But I will tell you, the public will be having access to this. And board members, I just want you to be prepared. I step away right now because at this point in time, I know board members may have discussion. And this is, in the face of of having such a bold meeting such as this. It's not easy for me to do this, and our board members. They have stood fast through a lot of questions. And Superintendent Davis, I know we can do a lot, and we will do a lot to correct many of these situations. But our job right now, board members, as you know, is very difficult. And these are comprehensive avenues of thought. So let's take it as thoughtful discussion. I think probably we have time for up to 5 minutes per board member. And then we're going to, we're going to go to the next subject, which is the the finance plan, the DOE. And we'll have discussion on that. So if you would like, we have a speaker list. Member Combs, and then followed by Member Washington.
Thank you, Member Gray. I will say that seeing the data and seeing all of this, I would like to say I'm surprised, but I visit schools on a regular basis. I mean, I'm newly elected member for Hillsborough County School Boards, and the reason I, decided to do this is because of the love I have for Hillsborough County Public Schools and the care I have for our children, and every single teacher, every staff member, everybody, in ROSAC, I have a deep respect for our school. And my biggest concern is I realize that due to COVID and due to the budget, there are some challenges that we have faced, unprecedented challenges that we have faced. And I do believe that the morale throughout the country is very, very bad. However, when I look at question 8 that says the reduction of district level positions will not have an impact on instruction, and you see that is one of the very few pies where it is even, that means that teachers realize even if we don't have a lot, we can still do what we need to do to educate children. I really believe that in the teachers. My concern is the overall morale of the district. I'm very concerned because I am out at schools every day, and I feel that these numbers aren't really indicative, because I think there's a lot of fear in this district, and I think that's very unfortunate. I think people are fearful to respond to this. They're fearful that they will lose their jobs, and that is very concerning to me. You have done many wonderful things, you and the staff and the cabinet. They do a lot of wonderful things for our schools. I realize SIPs, there's so many things that we've done. But from the very beginning, one of the issues I've been very clear is about the communication in this district. I have felt that it has really been a few people who have been gatekeeping all that information. And because of that, some really simple mistakes have been made. Just like, we talked about the letters that teachers received. Well, yesterday, the exact same thing happened again. More people were told that they were let go, and there wasn't even a title to their name. So I think it is a really bigger issue on how people are made to feel. And I think that in the end, my biggest concern is the morale and how that impacts our students. Because the biggest thing is we realize we are in a budget crisis. People realize that we are going to have to cut positions. And I want the community to know whatever occurs today, whatever occurs in the future, the will of the board is not because of the cuts. It's the communication and the leadership. And I've urged many times for there to be more cuts from the cabinet. When people come in and they say, we're cutting everything, but I am not seeing those cuts from the top cabinet. And I've urged over and over out in the open with you individually that I would like to see more significant cuts, because when you and your cabinet came in, they received a significant increase in salaries. And to see that we continue to cut paras, ESE, and we're not cutting from the top, that is concerning to me. And that's why the morale is so low. I can look through and try to find a positive comment here or there, but I feel for these principals who it took them a lot of bravery to say that, the communication at the top needs to change. The bottlenecking, even myself, As a new school board member, whenever I try to meet with someone, you bring someone from the cabinet. Last week, I met with the auditor. I did not know why the chief of staff had to sit in that meeting. I mean, I don't understand that. This type of micromanaging cannot occur in a district with this size. And you can see that throughout all of that. And as I said, I know you've worked tirelessly. You've done many wonderful things. But if communication is the problem, and we cannot blame COVID, and we cannot blame the budget because of this, we have to improve the morale of our schools.
Member Washington. Thank you, Member Combs. Member Washington, you recognize.
Madam Chair, first of all, I want to commend the Hassel. They had some great questions here for some of the Hassel members to answer. It was put together perfect. Really did a great job putting it together. And I like to echo what Nadia said, Member Combs said. I love this district too. That's why I've been in it for almost over 50 some years as a student, as a teacher, and now as a board member. And I always want people to be respected. Did we screw up? We didn't give out the right information? We gave out bad information with names? Yes, we did. But you know what? We have an action plan set for Tuesday for the superintendent. Now, I don't know because I wasn't on the board when he got elected, but I put my confidence in the board who put him in the position that they knew what they were doing. And we're here to back him, to help him as much as we can, but there have been mistakes made. Hey, look, I'm going to use the word, we screwed up. At the end of the day, we screwed up. And we got to face the facts. That's the true way of life, people. We don't have no other way. As far as the survey, I question the control of the survey because I was told you could vote as many times you wanted. You could go in and fill it out as many times as you want to. You didn't have to be a House member to fill it out. You had to be one. You were supposed to be one. But how we know a House member, people outside didn't fill it out? Because you have to have control when you put out a survey. All surveys should be controlled. Because I can recall back some years ago, we did a survey on one of the superintendents, and I'm not going to call the name. And people just putting information in there. I look at it from the logical point, not common sense, because common sense different. Everybody common sense are quite different. But I look at it from the viewpoint of a former administrator, parent, community person. We have to, if we put out a survey, we have to control the survey. And Mr. Davis, I know you're working hard. The pandemic is hard. We are working hard. But then I also understand cuts have to be made, but we have to do it in a proper way, professional way. It's not easy to make cuts because everybody wants their job. And as I understand, we can't keep everybody. I mean, at the end of the day, we can't. But we can look out for as many people as we can and treat them with respect and the right way. I do believe in that. But as far as the survey, hey, it's probably a lot of people out there disenchanted. Because when things don't go right, you become disenchanted. Many times. So what we need to do now is we as a board, this ain't no superintendent, no cabinet, no one person. It's we. We have to work as a board to work this out. And the only way we're going to work it out is having teamwork. But we can express our opinion, what we think. That's the true way of America. We can say what we want to, but at the end of the day, we want to work out, make it work together as a team, and we can come out of this. I know we can. Hey, we got some smart people up here. There's smart people on this board. I'm happy to be surrounded by smart people. But we got to work together as a team, work together as a board, and we must have, when we put out surveys and doing any type of survey, we must have accountability and control. Because if you don't, people write stuff down sometime, and I'm not saying they did. Now, don't get me wrong, because I know some people are disenchanted. But there are times when you don't do that. So let's work together as a team and get out of this and do what we need to do. I'm looking forward to Tuesday. I got some things I need the superintendent to do to move it on. I got some things we need to do because we got to rebuild confidence now. And we can do it. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it.
Oops. Thank you, Member Washington. And Superintendent Davis, I failed to say that you'll have plenty of time to speak as well. Let's go through this round, and then I'll say a few things, and then your turn. Thanks. Member Perez, you are recognized.
Member Gray. Member Washington, I appreciate your comments on teamwork. But communication is vital when you're talking about teamwork. Last year, I confronted you regarding your salaries for your cabinet. You remember that? Last year, mid-year. And regarding the cost to renovate Rosa. I still have not received those numbers. So I feel like your staff does when it comes to the lack of communication, when it comes to the lack of response, when, in some issues. You have 5 people on your staff who were former employees under Jeff Eakins, who are now on your cabinet, and some of them were part of Superintendent Eakins' cabinet, who received $48,000 worth of raises. 5 people. That's a lot of money to be distributed amongst 5 people. And I can't imagine the money I'm going to find as I continue my deep dive. When it comes to this district who is in a financial crisis, and when you and I had a conversation in the sunshine regarding your cabinet salary, you mentioned that there was no difference, that there was no issues. And this really needs to be addressed. These financial issues with salaries at a high level need to be addressed. And yes, there has to be some cuts, but not addressing high salaried positions, and to provide 5 people with $48,000 worth of raises who were formerly already employed by Hillsborough County Schools. I don't understand. And I really need to have an answer to that, and my concerns need not be put aside, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Member Perez. Member Hahn, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chairwoman. So first, I do want to thank the principals for taking time out of, I know, our very busy days to answer the survey. And for HASA for leading the way to collect valuable input from our employees. Always important, informs the work that we do here on the board, and will continue to inform the work that we do. I also want to echo Member Combs's words. I really appreciate that. I know that, we've all been in our schools talking with principals, teachers, and checking the pulse of our community around some of the major challenges that we've been facing for over the past year. And I also, want to thank Member Washington. You made some excellent points, and working together is something that we spoke about at our retreat on Monday. as Member Gray said, we were only given this survey information this morning. I'll certainly look through it more thoroughly over the weekend. But what I see in some of the topics that are concerns to our principals and some of the things that they're feeling frustrated with around communication, micromanagement, transparency, cuts that are in the schools, and overall morale, as our previous board members have mentioned in various ways, are all things that we spoke about on Monday. We all have concerns about all of those things. And this, is just this survey is another data point to support our concerns. And we did come to consensus on Monday to work together in the best interest of this district and our students to come back together next week, sit down, create a correction plan, a professional development plan, whichever term you would like to use, to work with the Superintendent Davis on correcting some of these behaviors, and then using that information as well as information like this survey, as well as feedback from our constituents and teachers, students, to then conduct his official evaluation and make a final decision. And, so I look forward to using this information in next week, because I think that there's probably some really good information in this survey that we can use and input in our professional development plan. And I think that will help morale, knowing that their voices are heard and represented in that plan. I think continued feedback from our employees is very important. All groups, not just the principals, but we have, we all know we have various layers of employees that we still need to hear from. We still need to get information from. And so, that this is valuable information. I'm glad we have it. I know that we can utilize it to move forward. But I agree strongly with, my colleague, Mr. Washington, that, unity around this board is important to move this district forward. And so I will let my other board members speak right now and get back in the queue. But thank you again.
Thank you, Member Hahn. And I'm going to go to Member Vaughn. You are recognized.
Thank you, Chairwoman Gray. This is a lot. So I want to start off by saying that and I hope anybody who's paid attention, that I came onto this board full of hope and positivity. And I knew that we had immense challenges that we were going to face, but I was very hopeful that we could face those together, because we do have a lot of institutional knowledge on this board with our superintendent. And I have tried to be a champion of that along the way. To say that this is a surprise would be unfair, because while actually looking at this in the form of a graph and reading comments feels like a gut punch, I've been in my schools. I visit them quite often. And so none of this is really a surprise. And to be fair, I don't think it's a surprise to you either, Superintendent Davis, because I share it with you along the way, and we have one-on-ones, and I try to give you the feedback about the anxiety and the frustration within the schools and be as transparent as possible so that you understand. And I know your intentions are that, we've had a lot of changes because this has been an unprecedented year, and that you don't anticipate those changes next year. But when I say I feel a gut punch, it's because when I think about the success of opening up our schools and how when the plan came to fruition and we were able to open up our schools, it was directly through the hard work of our staff members in those schools. It was our teachers who didn't know if they were going to catch the virus or what that looked like, and put themselves on the front line every single day to support our kids. It was cafeteria workers working over summer to give out lunch. It was the janitorial staff who were on the front lines cleaning an unknown virus, not knowing if they were going to catch that and bring that home to their families. The staff and students, and teachers in our schools are the lifeline, and they are the direct reason why we were able to successfully open. And then to go in and see that they feel so terrified and unsupported and over-communicated, under-communicated, that there's a lack of flexibility repeatedly drives so much frustration, because there's no doubt that we are facing unprecedented times, and it is hard to be popular when you have to downsize. But there are ways to do it with empathy and compassion and being proactive, to where we can make our staff feel supported and valued, and they can understand the rationale behind it. And my concern is that we have not been, for lack of trying, able to do that. I know that Member Combs mentioned that we unfortunately, after Friday the 16th, let go of 4 more employees. Dr. Whalen, you and I had a phone conversation. You called to let me know that there was some error made, and unfortunately, again, after the 16th, we had to identify 4 more people. I would love, because I know Superintendent Davis, you've expressed regret about the wording in that email. I would love to compare it to the new email where we had more time to really think about it and highlight the ways that we try to word it to make sure that we conveyed the empathy and the caring and the appreciation for our staff members. I think that part of my concern is what I hear repeatedly that this community is crying out for is stability. And I know that we have a lot of challenges, but I feel that if we really try to be proactive instead of reactive in every decision that we make, we can find a way, even during a time of crisis, to offer stability. And unfortunately, I just don't see that in a lot of the decisions that are being made. And the side effect is you make the decisions. However, the board is held accountable for it, because the public doesn't really understand what part of operations you control, what we vote on. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of frustration aimed at us. And I think there's a disconnect from that. But overall, what I'm hopeful for and what I need to see is that your leadership is a good fit for this district, because I completely appreciate that you're coming on with a new board and you need clear expectations from us. And hopefully, if that was a plan's going to offer that, I hope that helps make it clear. But my concern is, without those expectations, if your leadership is a good fit for our district, because the last thing I would want to do is put you on a plan to try to change your natural leadership, style, and then have that set you up for failure, because that's not the type of leader that you are. So those are my concerns, is I just want to make sure that, in a district this size with so much diversity, that we're doing everything we can to show empathy and value with our employees, because they are the heart and souls of our schools. We can't talk about being a supportive district or a positive district or, the best district in the country, which I know we all do, if our staff members fear that there's retribution or unsupported or that we're not valuing them. So this is very critical information to me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vaughn. And next will be Superintendent Davis. I just wanted to make sure that I clarify the idea that we talked about this corrective plan, or actually I think Member Snively called it a professional development plan. Sounds a little bit better, but we talked, and talk is, in my vocabulary, sometimes doesn't lead to action. We can talk, say hello, and I'm going to go run 5 miles today, and guess what? I only ran, 3, and who would ever know? This is the difference. When you have data, whether we agree with an email, personal email, Member Washington, it's a big difference than hearsay. I go to the schools, I'm countywide, I can do this job full time, so yeah, I travel, talk, and I hear, just like you all do. But when I started to think about how can this board get a better measure, a measure that is something that other than just anecdotal notes, running off copies from emails, I thought, and I have nothing really to do with HES. I'm not a member, but I heard what they were going to do in terms of a survey, and I thought this would be the way a board can perhaps more distinctly measure the criteria, Addison Davis, that you want to be full fidelity in. if we don't have any measurement, accountability, if students don't have a report card and they just get the word good, average, below average, what does that really mean? When do we start saying we have so-and-so percentage that shares that this part of your leadership is not being done? And I think, and I've been an administrator, a teacher, a department head, all the, for 30 something or more years, all that, I understand schools, but I think we need is, as a board, something more definitive. And I'm just thankful that Addison Davis, our superintendent, allowed us to at least get a hold of this. And board members, I don't mean to be putting anyone in front of the bus. Most of you know that I'm very sensitive. I don't like doing any of this type. But you know what? I see it as a opportunity for growth, and more importantly, who is going to advocate for our principals, our assistant principals, our teachers, our supervisors, if we on this board do not say something aloud? If we on this board just accept hearsay, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to send the letter to Superintendent Davis, he'll fix it. It's about time that these board members, us, me, all of us, expect the highest leadership style and engage the superintendent on measures such as these in a real way. And I know we'll have the professional development plan, we will have deliverables, but at any rate, that's all I'm going to say about this. And Superintendent Davis, it's your turn, so.
And through the chair, I'm going to yield my time to after board members. Yeah.
Member Snively.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were going to have him speak before. I was just waiting. I thought you were just putting everyone in the queue, so I apologize. So, but anyway, that's okay. And I would like to also thank HASA for providing this information. I agree it's very valuable information, and it is a data point. Member Hahn, I agree with you. There are a lot of different data points from our stakeholders, and this is a critical one because these principals and administrators are the leaders of our schools, and they are the heartbeat of our school, not just our school sites, but our communities as well. So I'm hearing a lot of the same type of conversation that we had on Monday at our board retreat, and I think that feedback from our administrators is going to be very valuable when we get together on Tuesday to develop, a plan of action for you. I think that there is a lot of frustration, and I didn't need a survey to understand that, because I hear from my principals on a daily basis, and I have very open, honest, candid conversations. So, as many of you were not surprised by seeing some of the results of this survey, neither was I. And it gives us, though, great opportunity for growth for our superintendent. And we can utilize this information to hopefully develop that plan, which will give some deliverables to the board. Almost every person who has spoken today, I have agreed with some aspect of what you were talking about. And, we did bring you here for a very specific reason, and it turned into something opposite. And you have done a very great job with some of the response that we have been required to have, putting 40,000 digital devices in the hands of our students, getting Wi-Fi for the students who don't have Wi-Fi, feeding families. We fed over 1 million meals to our community over the summer, and so those were some really good things that you have done. And I still believe when I look at the pros and cons, are you perfect? No. Well, no one's perfect. Could you be better? Yes. The way that we talked about empathy and compassion. I think Ms. Vaughn said that. It's not necessarily the what, it's the how it's done. And I do believe, I think as all board members have expressed, that we could be better at being more empathetic and compassionate towards our employees. But you know that, you recognize that, you've acknowledged that you're remorseful for the way that was handled, and that we'll have to deal with that and move on from here, with better methods and better protocol when it comes to making those decisions. You've had to make a lot of very, very difficult decisions. So I will disagree with one thing that Ms. Gray said. She said, and I apologize respectfully, you are doing a lot to get into the favor of our principals. I will respectfully disagree, because I do think that many board members have said it is a very relational position that you are in, and you have to work on building trust and relationships with your principals and administrators. That is so critical. Everyone deserves your respect and your trust, and making relationships is very hard in a district that's 25,000 employees plus over 200,000 students. That is a humongous challenge. However, I do think that making a more concerted effort to have those relationships with principals is probably one of the most critical things. And we've talked about that many, many times, how important that is. And I've seen some changes. I've seen some positive changes. So I know that you're coachable, because that's really important key as well. That's what we're going to determine over the next several months when we develop your plan, is to see how coachable you are. And I'm looking forward to that, because I've seen some improvement in that based on the feedback that I've given you, and maybe some of the other board members have as well. And I'm hoping to see some continuous improvement with regard to taking that feedback from us, because that's what we're here, representing our constituents. We're here representing the principals, and so we're just a conduit of information of what's happening out there to you, to hopefully benefit the way that you have to manage and lead this school district. So I think that, as Member Vaughn said, everyone comes on this board with hope and positivity. Everyone does. Every single board member comes on wanting to make a positive difference in this community for our students. And I thank you for taking this feedback publicly. I'm not really crazy about the cryptic way all this happened. I'll be honest with that. I didn't like getting the survey after the media may have gotten it, or just getting to devote, look it over, but I will, like Dr. Hahn and the rest of the board, take the weekend to really digest all of this information and be ready to utilize it on Tuesday when we can give you some deliverables for us. So thank you.
And Member Snively and the rest of you, I apologize. It was supposed to be finished Wednesday night, and it didn't get finished till Thursday night, right before midnight. So I do apologize, and I don't think the media has a hold of it yet, so sorry about that, Ms. Sokol out there and the rest of you. So you'll get it soon, no doubt. Superintendent Davis.
Yes, Mr. the Chair. I'm going to wait. I'm going to let all the board members finish, so you can go back to the queue if you need to.
Okay. Member Vaughn, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Davis. I just wanted to also clarify, when I say staff members, I'm absolutely talking about our admins and our principals. I don't think people realize how much they did over the year, and how that they worked straight through the summer to make sure that our schools were prepared to open, that our admins and our principals have had almost no break. And part of the things that they are concerned with are, the fact that every time they think they have a break, there's another mandatory meeting or an email with little flexibility that goes out, and that it leaves them feeling that if they say no to something mandatory, with all this instability, their jobs are on the line. So they have to kind of, be responsive to this, but it really takes away from their ability to give all that they need to their schools, because I get constantly told that with staffing cuts, they are the ones who have to really jump in and open car doors for our students to make sure they get safely into the building, and, make sure that they're kind of eyes and ears are everywhere with our schools kind of being thinned out, and doing that. They are the superintendents of their schools, and to make these schools run, they have given so much time and energy. So I wanted to clarify that even though I talk about our staff members, specifically to our admins and our assistant principals who really feel, that especially with these cuts, since we don't necessarily have a matrix, it's been left at the discretion of the principal, and we've lost some really amazing APs who have worked very hard and sacrificed being teachers and who have become APs because they are the best of the best, and now unfortunately we're going to be losing them through no fault of their own. And I think a lot of the anxiety that was felt by this meeting, where I don't really understand what's motivating this, and I didn't create these problems, these are what our admins and our principals and our teachers are facing as they get these letters that are given to them. And the other thing that I wanted to kind of touch on is I agree with Member Combs. I think this board has been very adamant about trying to say that we want to see more cuts from the top. I know that you've given us a packet of cuts at the district level that you've made starting as early as July. But when I really look at, per salary and what their positions are and what their levels are, I don't think it's reflective of the request to do more at the top. And so, that's another way where I feel like the board has consistently given the will when it comes to mitigating these losses, and we're just not being heard when it comes to that. So those are just some things I wanted to add, just because I want to be, as explicit to you and give you the fairness of understanding publicly, what some of our concerns are, so that, you can have all of the information to be, more effective if that's your plan. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Vaughn, and board members were reminded that we have a tremendous amount of talk to do about the financial plan. I'm going to recognize Member Combs, and then following that, Member Hahn, and promise Superintendent Davis, I got up very early in the morning. So you're recognized, Member Combs.
Thank you, Chair Gray. Just a couple of other comments. I just want to thank HASA for providing this survey. And I do really believe, with all due respect, Mr. Washington, I do really believe it's indicative of how schools are feeling. I do really feel like this data is accurate. I feel that way. I mean, I know the both of us received the same call yesterday or the day before from a very upset assistant principal. I know you're hearing from your schools. So I think it's very important that we don't discredit the survey, because I do think that as I have been to over 50 schools, I do feel like this is very accurate. So I think that's very important, that as we look deeper into the survey over the weekend and look at the results, I think it's very important that we try not to have the narrative that this isn't accurate, because it is truly accurate. What we do with the information and how we guide you with a corrective action plan or whatever the will of the board may be, I think it's very important that this is not discredited, because I think it takes a lot of bravery. I know for myself, I was at a school last week, and one of the principals told me that she was nervous to fill out the survey. So I think that's very, very important. The other concern that I want to talk about is the way that we're making the cuts. I really want to look at how we continue to do that based on FTE and not enrollment. I'm hearing from my schools that they are concerned that we are going to have a shortage on some areas, and so that is the concern for me. And if that occurs, and if we need teachers, we need to think about how we're treating our custodians, our lunchroom staff, our teachers, the way we're communicating with them, the morale, and how we make people feel. Like everyone says, it's not what someone says, it's not what someone does, it's how someone makes you feel. And I think that's very important to remember that. And that is something that we really need to improve on in this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Combs. Member Hahn, you're recognized, followed by Member Washington.
Thank you, Member Gray. So I'm going to shift everybody's focus for a minute here, because I expressed something at the last board meeting. I've expressed it at different meetings at the retreat. This continual focus on adults. I have already been on record. This is absolutely important, critical data for us to have. Every board meeting, every retreat, adults, adults, adults. I would love to see a special called board meeting to talk about students. I would love to talk about the 39 failing schools, the students that sit in those schools. whose futures are at risk right now while we're sitting here again talking about adults. I'd like to talk about how over 50% of students who enter kindergarten in our district do not have any kindergarten readiness skills. They can't recite the alphabet. They can't identify letters or numbers. Where are those conversations? Where is the outrage from my colleagues around that data that has been around for years? We talk about we have the worst school to prison pipeline. Let's have a special called board meeting about that. Let's talk about that with our stakeholders in the community. I'm heartbroken over the morale in this district. I'm a lifelong educator. I agree with all the comments my colleagues are making. They're all bringing very, very valuable insight to this conversation. We all talk to our principals, our teachers. I have taught through my time at USF preparing future teachers, hundreds of teachers who now sit in these schools that I'm in communication with. We all have our finger on the pulse of this district. But and we're going to talk about a very serious, our finances in a minute. But what I want to say is we need, as a board, to start focusing on the work that needs to be done in our schools. And where we are in that, I'd love an update on that, because we haven't gotten one. I would love some data around how our students are doing, because they have had the most challenging year. I mean, we're struggling as adults. Imagine how students are struggling. We all know that. I mean, I don't doubt everybody is aware of that on this board and in the community. But where are those conversations? We need to meet next week, do a corrective action plan, a professional development plan, take this information and all the other information we've gathered individually and bring it to the table. And like Member Washington said, we're all very highly intelligent individuals here, and we can put together a plan. And then we need to start focusing on the work, And, you know, I'm very concerned. We're going into summer, and we have had very few conversations as a board about the work. So those are just my concerns. I just want to thank my colleagues for being here today. I know we're all under a tremendous amount of stress, that we are all here for the right reasons. I'm very proud of each and every one of you for the work that you've done. New board members, I can't even imagine what this has been like for you. Coming on to a new board during a pandemic. Look, I've been on the board. This is going into my third year, but fortunate my first year was before the pandemic. You've done an amazing job managing your roles under these conditions. And to my board members that have been here with me since my first day, you're also doing an amazing job. These are very difficult times. And I know that, and I know we don't have a whole lot of opportunities, I'm starting to lose my voice, to really, say this to each other. But, I'm very fortunate to be here with all of you and to have this team to work with. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Hahn and Member Washington. Then we're going to finish up. Member Combs, it will just be a quick remark. Is that correct? When we call on you, because we've got to let Addison Davis speak. Okay. Member Washington, you recognize?
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. And to address Member Combs, you may have misinterpreted. I did not say it was not accurate. I said it had to be controlled, because all surveys have to be controlled, because if you don't, then you don't receive the right answers. And I used to work with Sam. I don't know, many of you know Sam Whitten used to be over testing and measurement, who who was brilliant. And we always had to have control, because when you put surveys out sometime online, many people, and if you can use that line, you could go in and put in what you wanted to. But what I'm saying, the surveys, all surveys should be controlled, because it's so important to have the right data. Now, some of this data, I didn't say it was inaccurate, but what I do want people to understand, people could go in and use it and put their name down, because there's no name on it. They could just go in and sign and do whatever they want to. And again, the HACCP did, I told you guys, you did a great job on putting out the survey. I mean, as far as the questions is concerned, we're going to use this as an action plan for the superintendent. And we got to get teachers involved in surveys also. We should monitor surveys. We should put them out every so often to get feedback from the community, get feedback from teachers, get feedback from administrators. Because I've been all three. I've been involved as a teacher, administrator, coach, you name it, I've been it almost. So I do understand the importance of having surveys. So hopefully we can move on and go into Tuesday with the superintendent, get him to roll in here, and we can do the right thing. Thank you.
And Member Washington, probably a good idea to speak to Ray Bondi too about those questions. I'm sure he'll want to make sure his survey is clean. But at any rate, let's Member Combs, 1 minute.
How about 30 seconds? Just a couple things. I just want to make sure that we discuss increasing the number of board meetings that we have. I think that's very important because we've been meeting not as regularly. And also I want to say, absolutely, at the end of the day, it's about children. That's why everybody in here is about children. But yesterday we went to a frameworks meeting, and one of the things that really resonated with me is if the morale of the administration, if the morale of the teachers is bad, then it impacts students. So for me, it's really at the end of the day, if this morale impacts our school staff, what does it do to our children? And that's very important for people to remember.
Thank you, Member Combs. Alas, Superintendent Davis, thanks for your patience.
Yes, ma'am, through the chair. Thank you so very much. And I just got the survey just as early as you did. There was two surveys, though, one that had over 300 responses and one that had over 500 responses. So I'll look into.
One's preliminary, and
okay.
Yeah,
and
just
then
go by the big book.
So the two were presented to me, and openly, I understand there may not have been controls, and that is concerning. But overall, my job is to critically think and reflect on information that's providing from our leaders in our school district in order to be able to make those connections. And as an organization that is facing over $100 million deficit, it really creates turmoil. And at a time where cuts have really been painful and agonizing, it has truly disrupted the leaders in this organization in which the way they feel. And but openly we'll be able to look and dive in and to be able to listen, learn, and grow, because overall that's what leadership is about. But let me tell you about my first year as superintendency, which has been really truly filled with hurdles as a superintendent. And before I do that, let me acknowledge openly that what happened last Friday should never happen to any employee, ever happen to any employee. And as we know, I may have been out of town with my family, it doesn't matter. As superintendent, my job and responsibilities make sure the systems that we have are in place are followed. And I give hats off to the principals that did a really nice job on April the 9th when we informed over 1,000 employees that positions will be cut and they'd had to move. And that system should have been carried over, the same process. And overall, in a particular situation, that failed. And it should never happen. We should always treat people the way with respect and dignity, and we'll continue to do so in a collaborative manner. But going back to related to the hurdles that I face as superintendent, as you know, I became superintendent on March the 2nd, 2020, a time where within the first 2 weeks, we had to cut down and we had to close schools. We had to close schools right before spring break. And in that particular time, we were lucky as a school district because while we were faced with a pandemic and had to close one or two schools, Spring break allowed us to try to figure out what was going on, how to interact with COVID. How do we face something that we've never faced before? So as spring break went through, the state decided that they would close every school in the state of Florida. And in that time, this team took an immediate approach to try to figure out how to survive. Because I've said before, there was no playbook. There was no research. There was no exemplar of how to take a school district of 220,000 students, 25,000 employees, 240 schools, and push them and help them transition from brick and mortar to a number of innovative solutions. It was extremely difficult to do. But I agree, our teachers, our support staff, our leaders were resilient. And I always say it, not every hero wears a cape. Everyone that's in the four walls we call our classrooms in our schools are identified as being heroic. But during that time, we quickly moved immediately to talk about our employees. And while our employees were off, we stood strong as a school district. And we told every one of our employees that we were going to take care of them financially, even though that some of them may not have had roles and responsibilities during that time, that we were going to protect them in a very difficult situation, showing grace, showing compassion. And at the same time, we had to figure out how instructional momentum continued. How are we going to take care of students to make certain they moved from brick and mortar classroom to remote learning, but being able to be exposed to high level experiences to push their intellectual standpoints? And we did that by providing a number of solutions to ensure consistency, to find out how we provide ongoing professional development to our teachers, to our leaders. How do they actually even evaluate, monitor, assist? How do we figure out and assist with identifying mental health indicators during that process? And we also transitioned to understand that why our students were out during the start of this pandemic, and have been, that we also knew that there was nutrition that needed to be addressed. So many of our students are socially, economically challenged. And not only do we stand up 147 schools, and thankful for our nutrition center and our leaders, but we also identified 150 buses to go out to address socially, economically challenged areas that who could not and did not have the transportation to come to us. And by doing this, to date, by last March to date, we served over 10 million meals to our children. To me, that's a major success. I openly was there with our principals, our assistant principals, our teachers, our support staff, handing out, making that connectivity, asking how we can help them through that process. Team members was there as well. And at the same time, I think within the first 2 weeks, one of the greatest things we did was stand up, this team, we stood up a beautiful relationship with TGH and USF Health to have guidance. We are educational experts, but we transitioned to the local medical health experts to help us champion through this process. And that's to help us create a reopening plan. How can we reopen our schools where parents feel valued, where parents had a choice? And we provided brick and mortar, remote learning in Hillsborough K-12 to allow the parent to have stake in where they would go the next steps. But in that reopening plan, the state identified it as a model. Superintendents throughout the nation called me about being able to leverage and use it. How do we do it successfully? Biden's team called and asked me. I had an hour-and-a-half conversation. How did we do it so well in Hillsborough County? Because our teachers and our leaders did a remarkable job making that connectivity. And then we also had to identify COVID assessments. While teachers were fearful to come back openly, and our employees, how can we have expedited assessments for our employees? So through this partnership, we identified 10 geographical locations, and we've had over 1,100 of our staff members take the assessments to determine whether or not we can protect them and put them back in the best working conditions. And then the reopening plans inclusive of co- and extracurricular activities along with athletics to return back to somewhat of a normalcy within our school district. And TGH is also, when we see a spike in particular schools, have walked with our team, with Climate and Culture, with Jennifer Sperano, to be able to identify, can we do something better? What's the overall causation to create that safe place? And then, as you know, we put and followed every single CDC measure. We ordered over 2.6 million masks, over 700,000 wipes, 50,000 hand sanitizers we put in our schools, thousands of gloves. Every classroom has a sanitation station. We were the first in the state to launch a COVID interactive data dashboard. And at the same token, we were the first in the nation to transition to MERV 13 filters to help with the circulation in our schools, because we may not have that. And then we addressed the digital divide. It wasn't not only did we have an approach where, as we transitioned out, it wasn't just as easy to say we're going to continue to connect. How are we going to have that connectivity? Many of our students didn't have hardware, and they didn't have the infrastructure. So having 28,000 laptops for 200,000 potential students in need wasn't going to be good enough. We weren't prepared. I ordered immediately 46,000 laptops, having 74,000 laptops in the hands of children. On top of that, being able to expand with the potential of expanding 37,000 of order. The state called me and said, Ashton, we can't get laptops. We need you to relieve. And I couldn't do it. I had to protect students in Hillsborough County. And then being able to leverage. We had on our return, 7,600 students that we could not find. But being able to leverage 235 social workers to go and knock on doors, to go connect with our families and friends, to identify children. We put that number all the way down from 7,600 to 342, bringing back 800 students, which is over $6 million back in the school district, and saving children to help them have that connectivity. And then overall mental health. We know that so many of our families were furloughed, so many of our families being able to transition to not having jobs. So being able to make certain that we had a mental health aspect. And then we transitioned to the phase 2 of the funding side of it. So not only do we have a pandemic with many, many hurdles, we transitioned to, and I came in, I knew, I've read articles about the financial situation in Hillsborough County, but I never knew it was this difficult. Where the crisis was tremendously real. In July 2020, we identified $50 million deficit in Hillsborough County. We immediately apprised the board, met 2 hours about what the issues would be, and we know that in September 2020 that we could potentially not be able to meet payroll for November for 25,000 employees in the school district. So we immediately transitioned to get a TAN, a tax anticipation note, that allows us to bridge the gap. So many phases happen. Phase 1 in its perspective where we had to implement a hiring freeze and put organizational controls related to reducing overtime, reducing the district budget, and making certain that we eliminated travel. All of that helped us. And then we also had to make certain we created a new staff allocation model linked to FTE and consideration of enrollment, to be able to help us financially. Along with being able, at that period, we had to cut 424 positions in this district between September and October, in which 40 of those individuals were temporary teachers. The rest of them were vacancies. And that created major disruption with our schools. Principals built and APs built relationships with staff. They built relationships with families. And we were disrupting them because of the financial situation, moving them from one school to the next. That creates angst with leaders, at school-based leaders, district leaders, and with the staff in the community. And then phase 2 of the process, we asked for an audit, the Council of Great City Schools audit, which came and identified that we truly had a major financial situation. There was lack of organizational controls with funding. There was, in that the team we took swift action to identify proactive steps to be able to solve the financial issues. And also getting to a point where in that same time, we were able to leverage the governor's $38 million to be able to compensate our teachers. And at the same time, identify a little bit of money to help veteran teachers, which we know we have works to do. But the next phase of that process was starting in January, where we had multiple meetings to talk about our financials, to talk about where we are. At the same token, being able to have many workshops, and every board meeting, we talk about the financial situation at scale. And then in addition to that, I've had, if I think about it, maybe over 50 conversations I've had with media, conversations in the communities, with chambers, PTSAs, with local groups to identify our expenditures versus our revenues.
Superintendent Davis, we're going to have to close up soon.
I just got a couple more minutes.
Okay,
I'm
thanks.
sorry, but I just want to be able to tell the story because openly
I
there's been
understand.
many when you look at like-sized districts, identifying the potential overages of our staff. And then we get to April 9th, where April 9th really talks about where we are and having to close and transition to cutting 1,100 positions, which creates additional angst in the school district. That is majorly disruptive. So overall, we have cut administratives, district staff, and as you'll see at the end of 21-22 school year, around $23 million outside of the schools. In that impact, our bond ratings have decreased because of the situation that we're in. But overall, looking at the historic findings in Gibson report in 2015 identified that the district was $90 million over staff with staff members, $90 million, which was not addressed. And it's unfortunate that at this particular time, dealing with a pandemic, and at the same time with the finances, it all comes together, and it does disrupt. Steps as a superintendent that I would never make have come to a reality. I would never cut teachers, support staff, leaders, but being able to combat receiverships, tough decisions have to be made. And overall, I've been focused on the instructional side of the work. Understanding coming in, I got hired to move the persistently low-performing schools. We know that in Hillsborough County, we have 39 persistently low-performing schools. We also know that we have the most DNF schools in the state, 28. And we also know that the majority of our students at the 39 persistently low in schools are level 1 and level 2 readers in area of literacy and mathematics, all which I am committed to be able to address. But overall, I appreciate the feedback. I'm open to feedback that does have controls. And at the end of the day, I've listened, and I appreciate every board member taking the time on Monday to commit to being able to move forward through a continuous improvement plan that allows us to address many of issues about building relationships with administrators. And you got to understand, the first 5 months, I was not able to get out with a pandemic. Haven't had face-to-face opportunities. They've been limited. So building that trust and understanding the unique personalities of every school and how I can support them. And we'll do that by expanding dialogue with Davis. We'll do that by making certain that when I go to schools, I'm meeting with the principal in their school to identify what's working, what's not, and what we do differently, and ask them how I can be an agent of change. And at the same token, making certain that we improve the overall trust in our community.
So,
And last one, trust in our community related to how we engage PTSA from every region, how we do listen and learns, how we offer brown bag lunches to our CEOs and CFOs and bring in individuals to unite, to work in a collective manner. And at the same time, making sure I consistently solicit feedback and thoughts to be able to improve this organization. I'm committed and look forward to us using this as a foundation and a baseline to be able to get better in Hillsborough County.
thank you, Superintendent Davis. We appreciate all that you're doing and all that you will do. Members, if you'll put yourself in the queue, we're going to address the DOE letter, which basically gives us a call to action. Quote, the school board and Superintendent Davis must submit a financial recovery plan to the Florida Department of Education by 20 days, which is really 19 days from the April 21st letter date. This plan will show how expenses will be and will continue to be reduced, and that reasonably demonstrates that the district has a plan to resolve its financial emergency for the 2022 fiscal year. Board members, I know that you have some discussion. Member Snively, followed by Member Perez, followed by Member Washington. Member Snively, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, I just wanted to comment on Superintendent Davis's comments just briefly. And, and I asked, I'm going to say this very respectfully. I think most people tuned you out about halfway through that speech. And I'll tell you why. Because I think people just want you to acknowledge how they feel right now and apologize for the mistakes that you've made and promise us that you're going to do better. And I think that's all you really had to say. And we'll go from there. How about that?
How about that?
Thank you.
Well said, Member Snively. And following Member Snively is Member Perez, then Member Washington. Member Perez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with the call to action that has been requested of all of us, we dipped into the general fund and the capital monies for computers with the intention of returning that money with the CARES Act. We had, you mentioned, sanitation, masks, filters, the digital divide, feeding our students, and mental health. And, according to the letter that we received yesterday, here it's letting us know that the money from the ESSER would not be available to us before become available in 2021-22. And according to what we were told is that if we went into our general fund to use that money for our COVID issues, that money would be returned to us. And now we're being told that we have to come up with a financial plan not to include those funds. So, and here we are. So, which is a problem. It's problematic to me. It's like somebody asking you to borrow money and then promising that it would be returned and then putting your household in a financial issue because they don't return the money to you. So what I'm requesting is that we form a oversight auditing team, a board, to include, some of our folks from the community that have some experience with government agencies, some CPAs, and to continue that financial oversight to this board, along with that forensic audit, because I think it's important to keep this board on track and to continue, assisting us with our finances, and also to provide that support to our CFO. But that's what I'm requesting of this board to assist, and that we received this plan from Superintendent Davis within the next 2 weeks, because if we only have 19 days, we need that plan in order for us to review it. And then also ongoing, that he maintain us in the know within those 2 weeks on a maybe every other day basis, so we know what's happening. Also a scrubbing of our finances so that, they eliminate the big ticket items. I know we're going to be speaking about Kelly Services. That's a $15 million tag on us. And that was something that could have been scrubbed. But, items like that we could look at, that right now we could bring in-house, that we could remove those items from our budget.
Thank you, Member Perez. And I know Superintendent Davis will be mentioning the weekly public finance meetings that probably will be held as a deliverable. Member Washington, followed by Member Combs, followed by Member Vaughn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Davis, I was reading down in the information that was disseminated from the state, and they said something about December. Did we do a report, some kind of report in December?
Through the chair, there was we reached out in December last December 2020 to be able to engage the Department of Education to identify what steps would have to take if we were not going to hit the threshold of 3%. So we asked for their feedback in that process, and they asked us if you're forecasting to be able to move, please provide us some information. So they asked us for an email somewhere in that time in December to ask us to send them a corrective action plan. And in turn, I asked them to please come and meet with us so that we could show them where we are from a financial perspective. They came within the next couple of days. We sat down, we went through all the elements. We showed them the proposed internal plan. We didn't submit any formal corrective action plan. And they were part of the conversations along the way and have continued to be part of the conversations, being able to address our finances since December.
Okay. Another question. I think this is so important so everybody could understand, and I'm going to let Mr. Porter handle this for me. When we are talking about a takeover from the state, can you go into a little bit detail so people could understand? I think that's important.
Thank you, Member Washington. I'd be happy to. So there's been a lot of talk about takeover and receivership, and that's language that people use sort of loosely, but this is really driven by Florida statutes. So I think it's important for everyone to be on the same page about what that means, and I appreciate the opportunity to explain that. I will also note for the record that since we received this letter yesterday, the legal team has been working diligently on understanding what it means, what options the board has for responding to it, in addition to complying with the requirement that we submit a plan, but what other legal options are available to the board, and we'll continue to work on that and advise the board appropriately. So I'm reading from, this is Florida Statute 218, Section 503, and this is subsection G1, and I can provide this information to the board. It really is spelled out in the Commissioner's Corcoran's letter, but I think it's important to hear here as well. So what would happen if we're in a financial emergency and we dip below the 2%? It's called a financial emergency board, would be appointed by the State Department of Education, and a chair would be selected. So the state would select a group of people to serve as what's called a financial emergency board, and they would have the following powers. And this is coming right from Florida statutes. And I apologize for reading to you, but I think it's important that you hear it as opposed to being paraphrased or being language used loosely. I think it's important that the language be precise. So this is from Florida statutes, and the emergency board may make such review of records, reports, and assets of the local government entity or the district school board as needed. That's number one. Number two, consult with officials and auditors of the local government entity or district school board and the appropriate state officials regarding any steps necessary to bring the books of account, accounting systems, financial procedures, and reports of the local government entity or district school board into compliance with state requirements. 3, review the operations, management, efficiency, productivity, and financing of functions and operations of the district school board. Next one, consult, and this is important for you to all understand because this is pretty significant as well. Consult with other governmental entities for the consolidation of all administrative direction and support services, including but not limited to services for asset sales, economic and community development, building inspections, parks and recreation, facilities management, engineering and construction, insurance coverage, risks management, planning and zoning, information systems, fleet management, and purchasing. Those are the powers enumerated on the statute that the board would have. Some of them sound sort of vague. There's no precedent for this in Hillsborough County. I believe this has happened in Jefferson County in the state of Florida. But again, we are actively researching what all this means and what it would mean for this board if we get to that point, as well as looking at all potential legal opportunities for the board to react to it.
Okay, thank you. One other point. Superintendent, how, when we're making a plan, I mean, I've made plenty plans before, so how long it's going to take? Because I know we got, 19 days now, I believe? 19 days. So to be efficient and effective, how many days before you can get this done?
So through the chair, we'll get it done as soon as we can. We already have somewhat of a model that we've shared with the board for potential next steps for internal plans that we have due to being able to, because originally we started to look at 21, 22 as well. We started to look at potential cuts that were at 1,600 that we were having to make, and we got through collaboration with principals, it was down to 900. So we're going to have to make some adjustments for the second year model, but first year model is what we're trying to be able to identify. The issue is trying to find a $100 million revenue. I'm just going to be very honest. I mean, and I say $100 million. I think we need around, Dr. Kim, is it around $50 or $60 million that we need right now?
Just to give some information, the team met this morning, we ran the fund balance information this morning. Based on the information from the letter, our plan all along, even from January, was to have a $100 million intervention. We were hoping that CARES 2 would be available for us. So that doesn't appear that might be the case. CARES 3 could have possibly assisted us with a potential distribution around the 25th. But the letter here says we have 19 days to submit a plan. So let me just share this with you because I think it's really important for you to hear this. So this morning, if we were to shut the books today, we're looking at a $10.6 million fund balance. Now, this was without intervention. That's 0.01. To get to 2%, if we have a $10.6 million fund balance, to get to 2%, you're going to need $55 million more. So a total of $65.6 million to get to 2%. To get to 3%, we need $70 million more. So that's a total of $80.6 million is what would be needed to get to 3%. Once again, all along, we've kind of relied on the strategy of using that one-time revenue to buy us some time. And I'm hoping we can reach out to the department to allow us to take a look at that as we submit this plan. But the state requires a template. They require the fiscal recovery plans in the specific template. We did those on February 8th as a projected plan as we worked with the state and got their feedback on our strategies. It did include using one-time revenue to make the corrections as long as we were continuing to make the cut. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood that the 19 days, if we have to submit a plan without the use of soft dollars, we're not in the best situation financially for that.
Okay, thank you. So as you can see, it's all about the plan now. We got to get the plan accomplished. We got to do the plan so we can make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Washington. Member Combs, you're recognized, followed by Member Vaughn and then Member Hahn.
Thank you, Member Chair. I think if there's one thing that I would like people to know before they walk out of here, every parent, every adult, that we need to demand this CARES 2 Act and this CARES 3 Act from Tallahassee. We're looking at CARES Act to be $185 million, CARES 3 to be $400 million, and that's after the money goes to charters. The idea that Florida and Texas are the only states that money is not released is just unheard of, and we need to stand up to Tallahassee and say enough is enough. Please give us our money. So I want everyone to know that is the most important thing. When you walk out of here today, call Tallahassee and demand our money. Second of all, I want to say it's very important that we meet as a board as a whole, I think every week. I think, as Member Perez said, we need to have some type of community fiscal accountability board. I think it would be great if every board member brought one person from the community on board. I think that type of board needs to be organized by us, Superintendent Davis, not by you. I think as a board, we need to have a representation, and if a member doesn't have somebody, then I can find more people, or other members can. I do feel that we can find people from the community to support us and also to be members and to work alongside to solve this. And finally, with the guaranteed money, I would like to see the prospect of a TAN note. And we know we don't want to play this shell game with Title I, II, III money. But if we need to ensure that there's not a state takeover, that is something we need to, and I would talk to you through Superintendent Davis. Dr. Kemp, have we considered possibly using some of the other title money temporarily to make sure that this doesn't occur to us?
Right. One of the strategies that has been implemented in the past is we talked about reclass to specific dollars, whether it's categorical dollars, or also we would have possible reclass of some federal FNS as well as capital dollars, we could take a look at try to bridge some of that gap. I can tell you it won't be enough to get to 80.6 million without the intervention we've been talking about. In reference to the tax anticipation note, a TAN is not new revenue. So there's two issues that we're facing. The reason we did the tax anticipation note back in September, October was to bridge the gap to make sure we could pay our employees. A tax anticipation note will not help in the percentage requirement for fund balance. So we will have to, even our energy savings initiatives and things of that nature, we're looking at possibly capturing energy savings up front. There's two issues. We could do those things to make sure we can keep our employees paid, and that's always been a priority of the team, to make sure that we can pay our employees we afford. The second thing is whether or not the strategy counts as new revenue. A TAN does not count as new revenue. A TAN is debt, a liability with interest that we pay back. So unfortunately, we could use a TAN to cover any active payroll issue, but it wouldn't count for new revenue that goes to the percentage towards fund balance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Combs. Now, Member Vaughn, followed by Member Hahn.
Thank you, Chairwoman Gray. I anticipate I'll have a lot of questions, so I might want to get right back in the queue. First of all, I know we're talking about the budget, and I will pivot there. I just wanted to address Member Hahn, because I agree with you. We absolutely need to focus on our students, and I think that by advocating for the people who are in charge of our students, the people who are driving our schools, that's one way. But we did spend an entire day at a strategic plan retreat this Monday where I heard great conversation about what that looks like in support to our students, and spent hours doing that. So I think we are trying to kind of walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. And also I think that it's important to say that the superintendent has a lot of autonomy over that. And while, we can have conversation, that's really what we hire him to do. And unfortunately, our meetings don't lend themselves to a lot of space to have those discussions. And we did talk about the school to prison pipeline in our member-to-member meeting, and I know we have a workshop for that. So I just don't want anyone to think we're not passionate about that. Next, I kind of wanted to say I'm a little bit confused, because I know Superintendent Davis was very transparent that some of the decisions he made early on was because he was not aware of the budget crisis that we had. However, I feel like in the letter yesterday from the Commissioner of Education, it was very explicit that these have been systemic, ongoing, long-term financial crisis that we've had since 2015, and that the state has known about that explicitly. So it's frustrating to me, because I know, that there should be a relationship with our Commissioner of Education, that coming in here, if it was so obvious that that was something that was not, that you were not aware of. But the next piece is that, you and I talk extremely closely about this. I have been concerned about the state takeover and what could trigger that almost every single conversation we have. And I ask for an update, and we talk about possible solutions. And I appreciate the TAN note question, because that's something that I had asked this week, so I appreciate you getting me that information back. So as you'd mentioned, there's two things that trigger the state takeover. It's the payroll, and then it's the reserve fund. And it sounds like the commissioner is only concerned right now, based on his letter and what he spoke about the reserve fund. And so I know that you mentioned that you had worked very hard to try to negotiate the Generate contract to be able to give us that money up front, and that what the challenge was is that the Department of Education has not given you an answer, although you and I have spoken for at least 5 weeks on this, and I ask you every time if they're going to, as you mentioned, allow us to use that money as revenue. And I know that there are other counties who have done something similar. So as we have the conversation and we come up with a plan, I'd love to know the historical data of other counties who have done something similar, and whether the Department of Education has approved that as revenue, because it's a little bit of a disconnect that I read in the letter that they want to partner with us. But when we found solutions in a very challenging, when you have found solutions in a very challenging time, whether it is saying, we need the CARES Act money, it was passed on a federal level to support school districts through their crises that have been calibrated by the pandemic, and it does have language in it about necessarily salaries, being able to provide more programs. For the DOE to say we're not going to have access to that money, and then on top of it say that we can't use the Generate money, which you've negotiated to kind of get us out of this crisis. feels like a disconnect for me. The next question I wanted to ask about was our millage rate. And I know that in years past, our tax collector has worked with the school board to give us an advancement before the school year starts, because we have found ourselves in situations like this. And I know that Nancy Milan, who's the new tax collector, said that, the school has not requested yet an advancement on our millage rate. So I'd like to know in years past if we have asked for that and what it looks like and if it could be calculated. I know that goes right into our general fund, and it's something that we don't need permission from the Department of Education to be able to utilize. And then, how much time do I have? 47 seconds. Okay. And then I would also like to say, and agree with my colleagues, that I would like to see a community-led citizens oversight and budget advisory board really established by the board. I know you've been very kind to say that you have some visions for that, but I did read the Gibson report many years ago, and one of the things they identified is that we didn't have enough board-made committees, and that those are the heavy lifting of a lot of the work that we can do and connects us to the committee. So I would also like to see what we can do as a board to put that together, because we are the ones who are directly interfacing with the public. So I would just like to say that, and then I will get back in the queue. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Vaughn. Member Hahn?
Thank you, Member Gray. So a few things about this letter that caught my eye, and after hearing some of the comments, I'd really like to just highlight as part of a discussion with my colleagues and to share with the community. So one is on page 2, where it's stated that the school board must develop and implement a financial recovery plan. Failure to resolve a state of financial emergency constitutes malfeasance, misfeasance, and neglect of duty by a school board member. And then it goes on the last page, if your board neither possesses the will nor the ability to develop an approved plan that will improve your fund balance to meet the requirements outlined in statute, I'll be forced to utilize the totality of the powers delegated to me by the legislature and the state constitution to take emergency action to bring us in compliance with the law. One of our main duties as elected officials of the school board is to oversee the budget and the finances. And it's been very challenging given this past year. And this makes it clear that as a board, we are coming up with a financial plan. And I know many of my colleagues, Ms. Fawn, you've been really vocal about wanting more interaction and conversations around the finances. I know that when Ms. Saunders was here, she and I would meet twice a month to really do deep dives into the finance, discuss the finances, the fund. So, this made it clear. He is not bringing us a plan in 2 weeks or 19 days. We are developing a plan, and we'll have to do that with staff. Because at the end of the day, I know we're all frustrated with getting handed something at the last minute and having to stamp an approval or not approval on it. So I suggest, and Member Gray stepped away from the dais, that she get with our secretaries to get a number of meetings on our calendars over the next 19 days, so that we can sit with the superintendent and his staff and develop a financial plan. That is our responsibility as elected officials. And the buck stops, with all of us when it comes to this letter. The last thing I'll say, and then I'll get back in the queue, is that Mr. Corcoran strongly states here that if there is a thought to solving this reoccurring financial issue by using one-time stabilizing funds, may it be CARES money or generate money or whatever solution everyone has brought up to the table, I strongly encourage you to remember that fixing a long-term problem by using a short-term resolution will not get the district on solid ground. We have to get on solid ground. I understand that these dollars that we all desperately want to come to this district can help stabilize our workforce while we're getting on solid ground. But using those dollars for a 2, 3, 4-year, 5-year solution is how we're sitting here today with this letter in front of us. Having conversations as a first-year board member with previous leadership around the urgency to find reoccurring solid revenue was happening. And then leadership changed. And then we uncovered even more data. So, you know, this can has been kicked down the road. And I you know, we've talked about this before. We as a board need to address this. It will be our legacy forever. This, you know, we do. Look, my feeling is when the day comes that I leave this district as a school board member, and I think every board member would feel the same. You want to leave this district in a better place than when we came, right? We want our impact to leave it in a better place. As a board, I know we're all busy, but I encourage all of us to wrap our arms around committing to being a part of developing this plan and insisting on it, and not being handed a document in 3 weeks or 2 weeks to review. We need to join hands around this and have our voice in this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Hahn. And just a few of those requests, Member Superintendent Davis can remark, but our CFO has agreed to monthly finance meetings. We had those before, where the public is invited, as well as obviously the board members, where we can also get updated. But also, Superintendent Davis, maybe it was yesterday, we hopefully agreed to weekly public finance meetings versus one-on-ones. So you can remark on that. Member Hahn, I'm trying to get to this. It's really kind of a confusing sentence structure, because on one part it says the school board and Superintendent Davis must submit a financial recovery plan. Another sentence says it is the school board. So, I mean, I hadn't quite grasped the difference, but again, Superintendent Davis, perhaps you have a better understanding, because I certainly don't. In my book, and I think board members would agree, it has to be both of us. We can't just do it without staff assistance and without our auditors, et cetera. So, you know, that's another part of my question. Perhaps you'd like to answer that right now.
Yeah, I could, because I think it's a legal question in some ways.
Okay.
And I don't want to certainly the superintendent can speak. I mean, the way I read that is the school board needs to vote on the plan, and it needs to be done in collaboration, but you need to react to what the financial team brings to you. So to Dr. Hahn's point, it's important that you work together with the staff, but just like all other actions that you take, they're the professionals that have the ability to prepare a plan with your input, and then you ultimately vote on that, and you can change it if you need to, but the way I read that statute is it's the buck stops with the board will vote on it, but the staff will actually do the heavy lifting of developing the plan with input from the board throughout the process and when it comes time for a vote. That's how I read that.
Clarification, Mr. Porter, does that exclude the superintendent?
No, it specifically includes.
That's what I had read, yeah. It says
no,
the school board and the superintendent.
Yeah,
okay,
and
well,
the board he'll bring the plan to you after input from you all, and then the board will vote on it, and then that will be sent to Tallahassee.
Okay, so we'll be doing this together. When we talk, when Dr. Kemp mentions $86 million is needed with the revenue, with that amount of money, and we are acknowledging we will not get the CARES 2 monies if be had, and I talked to Kristen this morning, our government relations, till July. What type of new, restoration of monies can we gain if it's not generate? What are we looking at? Either Superintendent Davis or Dr. Kemp? Where are we going to get the money? I know we're doing the cuts. What else are we going to be able to do without that June plug that we thought we were going to have?
Yes, ma'am. Well, in addition to the cuts, you got to understand with staffing allocations or reductions, that's lag time. So it takes a year to recover of not paying the employees 2 weeks at a time to get the money. So that's a future realization of dollars. But for the current crisis that we have right now, the best hope that we can have right now is that CARES 3 is released May 25th. Though it doesn't meet the timeline of this plan, CARES 3 is potentially going to be distributed May 25th, which we would then could use reclass CARES $3 to assist us to meet fund balance for this one time. Again, it's doing exactly what the state what they've asked us not to do, but part of that legislation allows for us to use those dollars to continue our level of service to our education agencies throughout the districts of our schools. So CARES 3, potential release of CARES 3 is our best option at this point. We don't have $80.6 million sitting. Now we can look at categorical transfers. We can look at capital transfers. That too is the same type of process that has kind of presented the perception of a stable fund balance over the last couple of years. And when you see, though it's been happening, all the transfers have been happening to create a fund balance on June 30. When you take a look at the categorical reserves that were exhausted and the capital dollars that were transferred and reclassed to the sitting board members and to individuals that were here, it appeared as if there was a stable fund balance every year. As those strategies got exhausted, then we had those weren't available to us anymore. So our best option to make the correction was that. I'll also defer to Ms. Our CFO, since she's been very experienced with having to deal with these types of issues and strategies she might have possibly used in the past. Ms. Johnson, you want to speak?
Good morning, board members.
Good morning.
I would like to say, definitely we will have to kick that can down the road to plug this gap currently. But if we're going to project out and show you the problem with kicking the can down the road and how this has impacted this district. You guys, he did go through a historical and brought us up to date, and we're going to go out to the future. So I do welcome the board members, constituents of the public to be there so everyone could understand this operation deficit is real. And if we don't come with solutions to this problem, we're going to be in the same position next year, the year after, and we will definitely go in receivership. Mm-hmm. So that's all I have to say about it, unless anyone have more questions for me.
So board members are also, in our financial plan, must find new revenue streams, which I think is part of the, will have to be part of the solution. Superintendent Davis, you mentioned the Finance Advisory Council, and I think I'm hearing from the board members, of course, they would like to have their folks in that council. Are you agreeable for that? Because I know you had another business model, and perhaps you'd like to share your response.
Yes, ma'am. Through the chair. Overall, I want to take a number out. I will continue to meet with CFOs when I establish it, CFOs and CEOs, to be able to talk about current state of the district, look at financials, to be able to have strong understanding of where we are and what we're trying to transition. I'll do the same thing with PTSA leaders, but any committee the board wishes to put together, I have no problems with me and my staff connecting.
Okay, well, this will be talked about in our, and we'll have to figure out board, we want to call it a retreat or a workshop, but at any rate, questions are coming forward. We're going to go ahead. We are supposed to finish at 12:30, so let's go ahead. We'll finish up with what we have here, and then we'll go into the workshop or / retreat to continue the conversation. Member Perez, followed by Member Snively, followed by Member Washington. Member Perez, you're recognized.
Thank you. I have a quick question. We talked about selling of property, and all of a sudden that was dead in the water. At least I have never heard any more conversation about that. Where is that?
Through the chair, there was we were looking at multiple properties, including of ROSAC. We have not moved forward with any direction to sell ROSAC at this particular time. We were working to get some type of evaluations of what it's actually worth, and determine if there was anyone interested in potentially leasing the property and us still owning the property and having a number of floors if they were going to erect a new building. But at this stage right now, there's been no additional talk. We do have some surplus properties that me and Mr. Farkas are looking at to being able to potentially sell. We do not need, and we'll get a list to the board.
Thank you, Member Perez, and then back to Member Snively, followed by Member Washington.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I apologize if I missed the explanation, but just for the public, I think when we talk about capturing energy efficiencies up front, we've had that conversation, but I'm not sure if the public has heard that explanation of what that exactly is and what it could potentially mean to the financial situation. So could you just maybe briefly reiterate that for the public to understand too?
Yes, ma'am, and it partly answered Mrs. Vaughn's question. You know, the issue with any energy savings partner that you deal with is that we can't count future savings as current revenue. Now, what we are allowed to do as of right now is we can count energy savings annually as we realize it, as we might have done in the past as well. So we just can't get all. Let's just say we were projecting $120 million in the Generate, let's just say 25-year agreement. We're projecting $120 million in projected savings to count to assist us. Right now, from an auditing perspective, we would not be able to count the whole $120 million as revenue, according to our accountants. It would be, we could do it as we realize that. As every year, if we realize $15 million in savings, then it can count as revenue, and that can count towards the fund balance. Now, that strategy could be available as a last option. That strategy could be available to assist with any particular active payroll issues. It just couldn't count towards, all of it couldn't count towards fund balance. And I just want to make it clear that would be a last option recommendation from me.
Okay, thank you. Also, I just want to reiterate to the board, which we've talked about this before, but also since we're on television, how important it is for our constituents to advocate for proper funding from our state legislature. I know this won't fix the problem that we're having right now, but it is shocking for some people to hear that we are getting $623 less per pupil than we were in 2008 from the legislature, and we've talked about that at our workshops, but I always want to take the opportunity to make sure that people understand that we are working on a lot less revenue than we were pre-recession, and we still want to be restored in funding from pre-recession dollars. I've made the analogy in the past for a business owner to try and do business with the revenue that they were creating in 2008 to do business today on that same amount of revenue would be impossible to have the same level of professionalism and service in their business. So I know I couldn't run my business today with the expectations of my customers with less revenue than the amount of revenue I was making in 2008. So $623 plus interest, COLA, whatever you want to add to it, but that's the number that we need. Okay, or more. But the other thing is, since this is obviously very urgent, the commissioner has made this a very urgent situation. It's obvious in his letter that he has sent to us. I wanted to request that our board chair or superintendent, because I know you can both call special board meetings, we don't have anything set up right now on the calendar, and I was looking at May 4th to see if that would be acceptable for our board members to, and our chair and our superintendent. It's 10 days from now, so it's almost halfway point to have a special called board meeting on Tuesday, May the 4th, so that we can, from now until then, work with our superintendent and his staff on this financial plan that we are, at the end of the day, as Florida statute has dictated, responsible for. And so I agree with Dr. Hahn in her comments that that we are the ones that are responsible for this, and we need to make sure that our work is collaborative with the school superintendent and his staff. So that would be my request. I don't know if that's something we need to vote on or Mr. Porter?
You don't need to vote. If it's acceptable to everyone,
Yep.
and the chair and the superintendent agree, then there's no need for a vote if that works on the calendar.
I was hoping that would just be enough time to at least get a first draft of what we're going to send to the Department of Education.
And I would just recommend not doing it later than that. I think time is of the essence.
I agree.
I think May 4th is going a little far out, but I think that gives the superintendent time to develop a plan. But I would not recommend going much further than May 4th.
And I would hope that that plan is about 90%, if not more, complete, so that we can look at it ahead of time. We should be able to get it before the 4th, not on the 4th, maybe the Friday before that meeting, at least Thursday or Friday before that meeting, so we can review it as board members and be prepared to discuss it on the 4th.
Okay, board members, just nod your head. Would that be acceptable? Okay, so you have consensus. Thank you, Member Snively.
Madam Chair, if I may, just
Yes,
to
you may.
add on to that, it might be wise then to be thinking about if it is 90% done or 80% done, and there's more board input and public input, that then to schedule another special meeting to actually finalize it.
To vote on it.
To vote on it, and that could be determined. We can look at that doesn't need to be determined now, but I would have that in your thought process, that if it's not completely ready to go on May 4th, you're going to give more input, you're going to hear from the public, you're going to hear from the superintendent, but it does need to come in for a landing at some point, and to give us enough time to make sure we're not out of compliance with the mandate from the state for the 20 days response.
So the following Tuesday, if it's not too late, is the 11th, and that would still be within that 20-day window if we wanted to schedule another special call board meeting for the 4th for the draft and the 11th to actually vote on it.
Okay, board members, can you look at your calendars possibly so we can get consensus? You don't have to say it right this second because I think some of you are still processing, but let's see if we can do this by the end of the meeting perhaps, or let me know. Thank you, Member Snively. Did you have further remarks?
The only other thing I wanted to acknowledge was that this is very difficult work that has been done, and I will acknowledge that the superintendent has had the fortitude to make some very difficult decisions that previous administrators have not necessarily been able to have. It's a difficult balance. You want to protect the employees, you want to protect the district, you want to protect what's important to our district and our students, and I just want to acknowledge that those are really difficult decisions to have to come in as a new superintendent and make for our school district. And I know that there'll still be some additional tough decisions that you'll have to make, but just know, I think as a board, that we're going to support you in the decisions that you are going to have to make to save the 24,000 employees that we still have. We need to make sure that we keep that in mind, that those employees depend on us to make sure that we can make payroll and that they can continue their jobs to support their families and the children of this school district. So we're behind you. We'll talk more on Tuesday about the how, but the what, we definitely have to support you on that. Thank you.
Very good point, and the communication thereof, Superintendent Davis, for our employees will be critical because they are working on a slim budget. Many of them are. Next is Member Washington, followed by Member Vaughn, followed by Member Combs. Then Lynn Gray will end the meeting, and then we'll get consensus on those two dates, Member Snively. Thank you. Member Washington?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two things I have. I would like to also see an oversight committee. But I think before we select the oversight committee, we need to make guidelines with the board because it's going to be very important. Because I've seen committees organized, they're not there to tell the superintendent what to do. We're there to help. That board needs to be there to help that oversight committee. Many times, people on the committee think they can overrule the superintendent. So we're going to need to make that clear when we have those committees, and I know we will, but we need to have guidelines first for that. Also, Dr. Kemp, how much money are we receiving with the CARES 3 Act?
It's close to $400 million.
$400 million, okay. So is any of that money going out to charter schools or anything? Or we are. What, do we know amount?
It's projected that we'll get $485 million.
Uh-huh.
The portion we're projecting to go out already to the charter school makes us receive only $400 million. Because the state get a cut,
Oh,
and then
okay.
the charter school also get a cut of that $485 million.
Okay, okay, good. Well, that's all I have, really. I don't have anything else. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member Washington. Member Vaughn, followed by Member Combs. And board members, we're looking at May 4th and possibly May 12th, and I'm having your secretaries check your schedules. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairwoman Chairwoman Gray. And I am available in the morning time if we can have some more morning meetings. So first of all, I want to, point out to Member Washington that I agree that anytime I've worked within a committee or a citizens committee, we want to make it clear it's not to supersede not only the superintendent, but since we make budgetary decisions, the board as well. They have no power to make decisions. But it is a committee that's allowed to collaborate and give us some feedback and have some other eyes. And most of the times I've worked with committees, they do an amazing job presenting things for the board and for the superintendent to take into account as we make our decisions. And that's how we collaborate with the community. I also want to thank you for the information on the Generate dollars, because I know we've been having this conversation where I've been trying to get an answer on it for over a couple months. And from my understanding, you couldn't get the answers from the Department of Education, and that's why you weren't able to give us the answers. So either way, I'm glad we finally get some answers, because again, where the disconnect is that this letter led me to believe that we have already put in a partnership and worked with the Department of Education, and that they believe with the relationship that you have in your leadership to be able to solve this crisis to keep us out of receivership. The challenge that I see is that we have been talking about this for months and months and months. You and I, the board, this has been something, as they mentioned in December, they've been requesting a plan. So the fact that we don't already have a plan and that it's going to take a few more weeks to put it together makes me concerned what are the options we've had, because we have talked about this repeatedly, and here we've illustrated TAN notes, Generate dollars, anything that we could possibly come up with to try to mitigate that fund balance, the reserves in the fund balance. And we haven't identified once in months of conversation with you and months of conversation with the team, we haven't identified one thing that the Department of Education will allow us to use to keep us out of receivership. And again, the only thing that I hear coming from this conversation today, even though we've been talking about this for months, and I would hope we would have a plan already, is the CARES Act $3, which we've been told explicitly in this letter that we're not going to have access to. So I'm a little confused about the DOE saying that they've already kind of partnered with us on this and are looking for solutions to kind of work together, because I know in our conversations, millions of things that you've asked for, well, millions, a few things that you've asked for and identified have been turned down and been told no. So I'm just really concerned that since we've had this problem, when we're talking about being proactive instead of reactive, whether or not we just can't come up with any solutions, that there's just no solutions and we need to prepare ourselves for receivership, or whether or not, there are some things that you have identified that I haven't heard about, that we haven't talked about, that you think the Department of Education is actually going to partner with us on. So I guess I'd like a more concrete answer on, where you think we're headed now that we have all of this information. Thank you.
Yeah, we're getting near the, I'd like to say finish line, but it is very near there. Thank you, Member Vaughn. Member Combs, followed by Member Hahn, and then Member Gray will conclude the meeting.
I just want to thank Mr. Washington, because I think that is a great suggestion, and I think we need to start working as a board more regularly to quickly create this group. I mean, as I'm sitting here, I've received several texts from people saying, please allow me. I have the background. We are a large community here with so many professionals that would want to be part of that. So I appreciate that. I think that needs to be rushed. I personally would like to receive bi-weekly updates. And I know you have such a good work ethic. I would like to see a specific timeline on what it looks like as we talk about this. I don't want to wait till May 4th. I want to receive weekly updates, bi-weekly updates, and then I would like to see a specific timeline of how we will meet, as well as creating this advisory panel immediately. I don't want to wait, 2 weeks to create this. I want a timeline, and I want specific details on it. also, I think it's important that we don't kick the can down the road, but we also have to remember that our attrition is huge in this district. 1,000 to 1,500 teachers retire every year. Right now, Tampa Bay is the #2 place in the country to move to. You can look around and there's growth everywhere. I think it's really important that the community knows what a strong public school system that we have. And I said this yesterday. I have attended so many schools, visited so many schools. There's not a single school that I have visited that I would not send my own children to. My own children are in public school. I believe in our public schools. I don't want the community to think that we're weak, because we aren't. We have done, as you said, Superintendent, we have done so much. I think we are a model for this country. The way we opened, what we've done for our teachers, our administrators, our custodians, everyone. And I think it's really important that the community knows that we are strong and we will get past this and we will come out stronger. Thank you.
Member Combs, you are now hired for our marketing department. Thank you. It needed to be said because we had so much, well, we have a lot of negative information. So thank you for that. Member Hahn?
Thank you. Thank you, Member Gray. I think the retreat on Tuesday is a perfect opportunity for us to discuss a multidisciplinary committee around finances. We can kind of share some historical information from the Finance Committee that we had and the current Citizens Advisory Committee in place, and kind of talk about what's worked, what hasn't worked in those spaces, and create some guidelines. I do have a question, and one question for Dr. Kemp and Ms. Rowe Johnson. Has CARES 3 money been released by the federal government and sent to the states as of today? Does anybody know?
As I said earlier, I think I said that March 24th, correct? The state received it March 24th, and
CARES 3.
CARES 3.
Okay. What about CARES 2? Maybe it's CARES 2. Has all the CARES 2 and 3 been released by the federal government?
That is correct. Yes, ma'am. Through the chair.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted that clarified for myself. I appreciate it.
Okay, board members, thanks again for all your valuable input. And if we have consensus, we will meet next Tuesday in a retreat formation to discuss the professional development plan and obviously big time fiscal plan. Is that agreeable to every one of you? And so we'll put it in the ISC, and those arrangements will be made. And last, 9:30 is fine. I think we agreed to 3 hours. I'm sorry. Last, we're going to look into the 2 special called board meetings, and the secretaries will get with you and your calendars. We do not have a lot of luxury of finding time, because we're just going to have to make time, and I think you all realize that. Thank you, board members, again. Thank you, Superintendent Davis. Thank you, staff, for helping us get through this meeting, and thank you, Attorney Jim Porter. Adjourned.